All right. Hey guys, welcome back to TGO Podcast. Got a special guest today.
I don't know about special.
Yeah, you're special to me anyway. I mean,
Thank you.
learnt a lot from you. I mean, this is all together because of you mostly. I mean, I came to you, learnt a few things, came here, tried to put it in practice, and look at me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's difficult, right? Because you were well aware of what you wanted to do, right? You were well aware of you wanted to start a podcast. You wanted to have a platform where you could voice your own opinions and have conversations that were structured in a way that you wanted them to be. But it's more, and this was something I struggled with, especially at the start, is how do you actually do the thing, right? Because if you listen or watch a podcast, whatever it is, with whoever is the host, it kind of seems a little bit like magic, right? Like for me, for instance, when I began, I had no idea about a hosting website or how to actually record sound into a computer or how to, host it or anything. Like,
It's very hard to believe that though.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, go on.
I mean, welcome to TGO Podcast. It's really good to have you.
Thank you.
This feels like teacher and student.
No, not at all. Jesus. But yeah, thank you for having me.
I mean, for anyone that doesn't know, who will have Harry.
Yeah.
What's
hello.
your last name, Harry?
Powell.
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 Do you know what? This is how I think your last name is. I say Harry BJJ.
Fuck's sake.
I'm like, wait, that's not his last name.
No,
It's like,
not
that's the
quite.
spot. Like,
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you for
Good
having
to have
me.
you
It's
here.
very kind of you. Thank
I mean,
you.
I want everyone to, introduce yourself.
Oh, okay.
How
cool.
do you want people to,
I mean, that's a very difficult question. I mean, yeah, my name is Harry Powell, and I just am really like, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we obviously we know each other because of Tom.
Yeah.
And I met Tom through jiu-jitsu, but how do I introduce myself? Fuck, I don't know, man. I just do stuff. Like, I just do stuff. I don't. One thing that's important to me, and maybe this is a bit too deep for the first 5 minutes of the podcast, but I try to live life in a way that I follow some of Nietzsche's teachings, which is don't marry yourself to any ideology. So for instance, like obviously the reason you thought my name was Harry BJJ is because that's my Instagram handle, and that's my Twitter handle. But I do jiu-jitsu because I love it and because I enjoy it, not because that's who I am. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like I don't want to be defined by jiu-jitsu because I mean, shit, there's been so many injuries doing combat sports. It wouldn't surprise me if an injury comes at some point that just stops my ability of doing jiu-jitsu.
Don't put it out there.
Well, I mean, look, there were enough injuries that put me out of kickboxing for God knows how long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, it could happen. It's a possibility. And in the same vein with podcasting, right? Like, I've done the podcast since January.
Right.
So just before
this
lockdown.
year?
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's super new, right? Super new.
But you're doing great.
I don't know. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. But, like, I think I started it because I've been wanting to do one for about 5 years. Well, since I was a kid, actually. Since I was a kid in secondary school, what I wanted to do was I reached out to local pubs and stuff. I was like 15, right? So they were definitely not going to let me in. But like I reached out to them and was like, is there a chance like in the daytime where we could harvest off like half of the pub or something and just have a group of us in there that have a conversation? Because I didn't feel like, even then, I didn't feel like conversation at an actual meaningful level was happening. Obviously they said no, right? Like obviously they said no. So
you should have had someone who was 18 or something.
Yeah, but I mean I was 15, right? I didn't have any friends and my sister wouldn't have done it. But yeah, like that, so it's been in the back of my mind. It's been in the workings for a long time. And then I think this year it was just kind of like, if I'm not going to do it now, I'm just not going to do it. So I just was like, fuck it, I'll just start it and see what happens. And it's happened, right? Like it's going. I'm not doing crazy numbers, but the numbers don't really mean a lot.
I don't think
to me.
you should. Anyone should ever look at numbers. Yes, they're good. I think numbers are just for ego. To be fair,
that's probably
if you're doing something you enjoy, then don't look at the numbers.
Yeah,
it's just like I'm happy that episode's done. I'm happy I've edited it. I'm happy.
Yeah.
And that's what you should be focusing on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only reason I look at numbers is is because, I mean, maybe this is a question for you as well. It's like, because I enjoy doing something and I get value from it, I feel like other people can get value from it as well, right? So the best way to do that is to be able to reach a further audience, a wider audience. So I try to combat the feeling of, because me looking at numbers, like I've done it, and maybe you've done it, I don't know. Is like you look at it and you're like, oh, like why are those numbers lower than those numbers, or why are those numbers higher than those numbers? What can I do to change that, right? And that becomes a slippery slope, and became a slippery slope, right? Like I've tried Instagram, like sponsored marketing.
Promoting it
doesn't work, right? Like it does not seem to translate into actual listens. You get a fuck ton of likes on your post, but it doesn't actually transfer into listens. Same with Facebook advertising, doesn't actually transfer into listens. And now it could be that just the way that I'm doing it is wrong, possibly, but I just feel, well, the thing that I keep coming back to is just continuing to do the thing. And then if it grows, it will grow, and if it doesn't grow, it doesn't grow. Do you know what I mean? Like, as you say, if I feel like I'm getting enjoyment out of it, then that's and the other person is getting enjoyment out of it too, right? Then that's probably the most important thing.
I think one thing I've noticed, like running or having a podcast, is like when people come on, and it's just like, it's like giving them a platform to talk about certain things that they'll never talk about in real life, or they don't have the time to. In a way, it's like they release something. So I feel I get joy from that. Then joy looking at numbers, and then also it could be because I don't understand the numbers. So when I look at the numbers, I'm like, okay, so what does that mean? And what does it? I'm just like, you know what? I'm just not gonna focus on that. Let me just do what I like, and maybe in the future I'll understand the numbers.
I mean, I think that's probably a really, really positive way to look at it, to be honest, because you definitely can get caught up in wanting, because then like it kind of takes away from the point of why you're doing it, right? Because if you're looking at numbers and you're like, oh, I need to be better. Well, what does better mean, right?
Exactly.
Does better mean more figures on a page, or does better mean that the actual conversation you have enriches you and makes you feel like you've changed or been able to change somebody's opinion, right? And I think that it's because, to me anyway, it's because of the culture that we live in, where things are way more accessible, right? And they can come a lot faster with money, generally. So when you look at something that does take a long time, and it is a bit of a grind at times, like I'm sure you've had conversations on here that were not hard to get through, but that were slower and a bit more weighty than others, and some, as we spoke about off air, go for 6 hours and it's a breeze, right? Like you're 4 hours deep and you don't even remember what happened 2 hours ago.
True.
So, you know, I think that's natural, right? Like I've had conversations with people that I feel like I have to be more aggressive, and I don't mean aggressive in a like masculine sort of way, but aggressive in trying to force them out of their shell a little bit. Whereas with others, I just say nothing and they talk for 2 hours and it's grand. So I agree with you that giving somebody a platform to say things they wouldn't usually say. But that's what's wrong, I think, right?
What do you mean?
What's wrong is that there shouldn't really need to be a platform.
But have you seen the world that we live in? Like,
I agree, and that's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, and probably one of the reasons why you started the podcast. Right? But to me, it's like we should just be having these conversations.
That's my thought, exactly. I mean, I live my life like that. Like if I need to speak to someone, I don't need to come on a podcast. So hence why 9 times out of 10, like you're not gonna hear my story because I live my life out. Like if I need to say something to you, I would say it. I have no qualms about anything. But I want to know, like, where does that come from in terms of like the grinding? Like, where are you from? Like, where do you?
Oh Jesus!
Where's your family from? I'm trying to get to know you.
So I'm not sure. My dad's English, but I'm not 100% sure where he was born or whatever.
Okay.
He left when my mum and him split when I was 7.
And speak to your dad. Bring him on.
I've not spoken to my dad in.
How
old am I now? I'm 27 now, so maybe 16 years I haven't spoken to him.
Wow.
So yeah, I have fucking no idea how to get him on a podcast, to be honest with you. Maybe I'll check that on Facebook and see if he's around.
I'm gonna have to look for him.
But my mom was born in Wales.
Okay.
To my nan, who was English but lived in Wales, and my granddad, who was Scottish but living in Wales. My mum moved to London when she was 16 because she just wanted to make something of herself.
Okay.
She wanted to first be an RAF pilot, but that didn't work out.
Big ambitions.
She then wanted to be an MI5 agent.
Whoa.
That didn't work out. So she ended up working in like hotel chains and this kind of stuff, and just. But I mean, she would say that those were the best times of her life, right? Because she had somewhere to live for free. Yeah. Somewhere to eat for free. And generally, the hotel she was working at, it was like decent food, right? Like it wasn't shit. And you know, she was like a manager of whatever she was, and she was earning decent enough money when you're not spending anything. Yeah. And she would just go out and like enjoy London as London should be enjoyed when you have money to play with, right? And then she met my dad, and my dad was
in London.
See, I don't even know. I think so.
Okay.
I think so. You know, my mom didn't like talking about the relationship that much afterwards, right? And then they moved around quite a lot. They owned a post office together that did really well. Okay. That was back in Wales. And then they moved to Telford when my dad got a job at a food distribution company. He was like, what would he have been? Like regional manager for like the Welsh area. So the company was called Bright Brothers. So it's basically like you go to a restaurant and the people that deliver the food to the restaurant was the company that you work for, right? And from what I can understand, it was a well enough paying job, right? Yeah. So they moved to Telford, and that's where I grew up. Telford's like 20 miles from Birmingham. Well, I spent most of my life in Telford. I was born in Wales, but when I was 3, I moved to Telford.
When did you move to London?
Why did I move to London? Well,
when?
Like 5 years ago.
Okay, that's like that. Fairly recent.
Yeah. So I moved to London for work, really, nothing else. I was working, so to skip most of my childhood, when I got to like 16, I wanted to be a riot squad officer. That's what I wanted to be.
What's that?
So in the police, when a riot happens and those Donnies turn up with big shields and stuff, that was me. That's what I wanted to be.
Why? That is such a weird job to want.
A lot of my childhood was based around protecting people, right? So I think it was just plus it was an adrenaline rush, right? Like the idea of like some Donnie is gonna blow up an airport and I get to go run in and fucking see what's going on, like that's an adrenaline rush. So I think those two things combined went in. But I chatted to a guy. There was like a careers day at my school. Yeah. And I went and chatted to the police guy, and he saw that I was wearing glasses, and he was like, "What's your eyesight like?" And I was like, "Pretty shit, mate. I won't lie to you." And he was like, "That's gonna be a problem."
You can wear contacts though, can't you?
I can, but it's more that even with contacts, even with glasses, my eyesight's pretty bad. So I went through some of the process, and I eventually failed because of my eyes, right? So, and that was okay, like it was fine. But I went back and I said to my mom, like, what should I do, right? And she was like, well, what are you good at? Yeah. And what's gonna pay us some money, because I need to help with bills and that kind of thing. Yeah. So that was IT, right? So I got an apprenticeship in IT, and then the way that it worked was at the end you had a couple of exams, and based on the results of those exams were the hierarchy of order that you would be offered out to job places. Yeah. So I was offered out to a certain job place at the end, which was a company in Stafford. I worked for them, and then I got friendly with a guy there, and some guy was like, "Look, I'm going to London, come and work for me," essentially. So I was like, why the fuck not? Cool. So I did. And then that's how I came to London. Yeah.
5 years ago. It's just, it seems like 5 years ago is like a really long time, but it's actually not that long.
Yeah, it's not.
So what have you been doing since then? I mean, to me, you seem like an accomplished young man.
I don't know.
I want you to share the secret.
I mean, what do you mean by accomplished? Let's start there.
I mean, I don't know if you are happy for me to say, but like, you know, you have your own flat.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing I noticed. I was just like, okay, that's like a major stand up to me. I was just like, okay, I feel like I need to get to know him. I was like, immediately, I was like, okay, if I start my podcast, I didn't tell you this the first time we met, but I was just like looking around, just watching your body behavior and all that. I was just like, okay, it seems cool. We'll talk. Not now, but we will. So I want to know, like, how did that come about, and what kind of discipline, you know, do you need to have in order to attain something like that?
So that's a I don't know. So how I got the flat really was, there's a potential for a lot of money to be earned in IT, right?
Okay.
Without necessarily being really good at it.
Okay.
So there are two ways of working just generally, and that's one is like contracting or being a contractor, having your own company, that kind of thing, and one is being a permanent employee. Contracting is massive in IT because in IT a lot of the work is done on a project basis. So when you're a contractor, you're paid on a day rate because it's deemed to be more risky. Because let's say I wanted you to, I don't know, if we take Tom for instance, I wanted Tom to build me an app.
Yeah.
And I've determined it's going to take Tom 6 weeks.
Okay.
Well, I'll employ Tom only for 6 weeks. But because there's a potential that he's out of work for the rest of the year, he's paid a premium, right?
Okay.
So when I heard about contracting, like I was working in the first job I came to down in London. Yeah. And I was barely able to afford food, right? Like the rent and stuff was just crazy. So back in that time, like I would, I'm not exactly proud of this, but it's a funny story. Like I had enough money to basically go to Sainsbury's downstairs, buy a packet of ham and a bread roll, right? And like that was basically my food for the day, right? So what I would do, or what I learned, is that in Sainsbury's downstairs in Holborn, if you put 2 bread rolls on the weight scale and only put in 1, it didn't recognise that there was 2, right? The limit is 3, by the way. Yeah, essentially. So if you put 3 on the scale, it recognises. Don't do that. Yeah. But yeah, 2 is fine. Yeah. So I would have 2 bread rolls for the price of 1, and yeah, like some ham and whatever, and like then whatever was in the cupboard at home that I'd managed to put together. And you know, sometimes it was super demoralising. Like I'd call my mom and she'd be like, "You alright?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, fine." She was like, "You sound hungry." And I'm like,
it's funny how mums always know this.
It's ridiculous, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. And my mom would lend me some money, and that's like always super demoralising, right? And then when I found out that contracting was a thing, I started to look into it more, and it was a similar thing about podcasting. Like I understood it was a thing, but I had it seemed like the dark arts in order to get into it. And then eventually, like, I found out the money that you could make from contracting, and I was like, fuck this, like, why this guy that sat opposite me is earning 3 times what I'm earning, doing exactly the same job? Like, am I dumb? Like, what am I doing? So I left that company. I started my own company, whatever, and I started contracting, and I contracted for about 2 years, and that's how I got the house. So I don't mind talking figures if you're happy for me to talk figures.
Please do.
So when it was my first ever contract, right? And I was relatively new to IT in that I only got about 5 years experience, right?
Okay, that's still a long time.
It is, but so there's sort of a preconceived notion of when you're a contractor, you're like at the top of your game. Okay. Right. So when me at 23 was applying for roles, people are like, who the fuck's this guy? Right? Yeah. So the funny story, when I turned up for my first day as a contractor, my manager came up to me and was like, "Are you here for work experience?" Because he'd never met me in person. Yeah. And I was like, "Nah, G.
I'm here for the job.
I'm your new employee." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool. Come this way." So yeah, like so you're expected to be the top of your game, right? And I wasn't at the top of my game, right? I don't really want to be at the top of my game in that field anyway, but that's a different story. And yeah, so the first contract I was offered, I think it was £300 a day, right? Or £280 a day, something like that. And I went in at that rate. The job was supposed to be £350 a day, right? But I went in at that rate because the recruiter basically said, "This is your first contract.
Yeah.
Let's get you in the door.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about higher prices at renewal time." I'm like, cool. So it was only supposed to be a 3-month contract, but they ended up keeping me for 2 years.
Sick.
And through that, so it usually works. You either have a 3-month contract or a 6-month contract. So I was renewed a couple of times on 3-month contracts, and eventually they gave me a 6-month contract. And I worked up to a point where I was earning $440 a day, right? So obviously when you're earning that, obviously it sounds a lot of money, and it is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's you have to pay corporation tax, you have to pay personal tax, you have to pay business tax, you have to pay all this other stuff. You know, I would get a letter from the taxman asking me for 20 grand council tax, right, for a month, right? And you're like,
that would hurt my feelings.
Like, it hurt my feelings a lot, right? So although, you know, on the face of it, like $450 a day is about 120 grand a year, right?
Yeah.
So that sounds like a ton of money, and it is a ton of money until the taxman comes calling, right? And there are ways and means that you can hide a lot of money, and I didn't ever do that, just because I felt like I'm earning this amount of money now, having come from essentially having no money.
Yeah.
Like, let me just pay my dues. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because I lived a relatively, like, I'm quite an introverted person, whether that makes any sense having a podcast.
No, I hear you. No, I understand.
But I'm quite an introverted person, and I don't really live a lavish life at all. So I just basically saved everything I earn, and at that job I was working stupid hours, right? Like stupid hours. So I didn't have time to spend any money either.
Yeah.
I would go to work, go to training, and go home. That was it. So I saved up about 80k.
Okay.
And over the 2 years, and then I said, like, it was my dream. One of me and my mum's dreams was to buy a house for the family, right? Like an earning potential for the family.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna do it, right? Like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my mum passed before she ever got to see the house completed. But
sorry about that.
Nah, it happens. But you know, like, we did it anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, we did it anyway.
There's still some positivity.
Yeah, so that's how I bought the house, right? Like, it wasn't any grandiose, like, amazing sort of characteristics or traits that I have about myself, right?
Yeah.
I just fucking did the work. Like, that's really it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of the way that it's been in some fashions. In some fashions I'm incredibly lazy. But if there's work to be done, I'll do the work. You know what I mean? Like, I remember in my apprenticeship, like, my missus would be in bed at the time, and I'd be up at 3 a.m. like, lying outside the door in the landing, so I could have the light on, not to wake anyone up, reading my revision books, right?
Yeah.
And I would do that and do that and do that until the stuff stuck in my head that I would need to pass the exams.
Yeah.
In the same vein, in my first real job in IT, you know, I do like 90-hour weeks, and then I'd be on call where I was getting calls at 3 a.m, and I'd have to turn my laptop on and fix stuff, and I'd be back in the office at 8, and you know, just do the work, right? So if there's one thing that, you know, like, how did you do it? I'm like, I just did the work.
Do the work.
Right? And just get fortunate, right?
I think, to be fair, like you mentioned, like, the environment that we live in, or the culture that we're in at the moment, people just want things to come at them, like, really, I want it today. They're in the now. What's happening? If I'm doing the work, I want the results now, not knowing. Like, they're looking at someone who's got something that they like. It's like, how did you get that? Like, so it's like, mate, you just met me. I've been grinding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it was like, really, I was fascinated. I just like, there's no way. Like, I'm sure there's a story behind this.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I learned to do hard work at 7, right? Like, and just to preface before I start that, like, the tax laws changed in the UK, or they were going to change, and I had to stop contracting, so I've now gone permanent, right? So my earning potential is now half of what it was, really. Yeah. So, you know, life's changed because of that. Yeah. But yeah, the work thing, it's like, when I was 7 and my mom and my dad split up, like, I called my nan, right? And this is a story fucking so many people have heard. But I called my nan, right? And I was like, what do I do now? Right. And she's
this
like...
This is after the split?
Yeah. So I remember I was sat on the... So it was the same day, or the day after, right? I called my nan and I'm like, what do you want me to do? So my nan was like my idol, right? She was like my hero. Yeah. And she was like, just got to grow up and look after your family.
What did that question mean to you? Like, because That's a
I
very
don't know.
weird question to ask
But
for a child.
at that point, like, I didn't understand the gravity of that question, right?
Yeah.
My sister was super upset. My mum was super upset. So I just called the woman that had all the answers always, right?
Oh,
And I was like, what the fuck do you want me to do?
Yeah.
Right? And she was like, you just got to grow up and be the man of the house. And I was like, okay, cool. How do I do that?
Did you ask that question?
That's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, how do I do that?
What did she say?
She was like, you just got to grow up. And I was like, okay.
Bro, there's no tools. She's not handing you any tools.
Right. But she didn't know any tools,
Yeah.
right? Because what do you give a 7-year-old? So from that time...
I'll be heartbroken if a 7-year-old asked me such a question.
Like, I remember that my mind just changed there and then. At that moment, sitting on the stairs, I was like, okay, cool. My life's different now. And that's how it's been, right? Like,
Wow.
that's how it's been, always.
Is your nan still alive?
No, my nan passed away probably 3 years before my mom did.
Your sister is alive though, right?
Yeah. My sister's calm.
I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I can...
My sister's fine. My sister, she's married with 2 children, 2 beautiful children.
That's
and
amazing.
Yeah, she's doing good. But, my nan, to be fair to her, she did well. Like, she got to like 93, right? Like, she was,
Wow.
yeah, she did really, really well. And the story of her death is quite amazing, to be honest. Like, so my granddad died before I was born. Right?
Okay.
So my nan was living on her own for a long time, a long time.
No boyfriends?
No, she was married, right? Like, in her mind, she was
still
married. Yeah, 100%.
Old school ways.
Yeah. 100% old school. Like, and the story of my granddad dying is kind of crazy as well. Like, he worked in a hospital and he knew he had cancer, but didn't tell anyone in the family, not even his wife, until about a week before he passed. And when the pain was like basically too much, he was bedridden. He was like, by the way, I've got cancer. And like, he kept it in.
That's a strong man.
Yeah, unbelievable. And she's the same, right?
Yeah.
Like never once did I hear her complain ever about anything ever, right?
You think you have some of that trait in you?
I hope so. I hope so.
Do you find yourself complaining about the silly things?
Nah, not really.
Oh, that's good
not
then.
really. But like, it's the same with my mom. Like my mom was a workhorse as well. Always a workhorse. And when my nan passed away, like she was fucking Jesus. So the stairs in her house were really steep, and this one was 93, right? So she used to crawl up the stairs basically because she couldn't walk up them anymore. It was too hard for her. And we don't know what happened, right? We don't actually know because no one was there.
Yeah.
But what we think is that she must have been dizzy or whatever and fell down the stairs and she had a heart attack and whatever. But she survived, right? Like, she survived the whole night. And my uncle saw her in the morning, put her in hospital, and I got the call. I was supposed to have an exam that day, but I got the call and was like, your nan's got 24 hours to live. So we all go down to Wales and we see her, and she survives for like 5 months, right?
That is
She had two heart attacks. She was 93, had 2 heart attacks in the hospital, but survived. And what she was doing was when everyone got there, right? Almost everyone. And at the beginning, it was like she was fine. Like, she was absolutely fine. She was a bit banged up and stuff, but she was fine. And then slowly, she deteriorated, and that was awful for everyone to watch, but her, right? But what was crazy about that story was she would ask for people. Right?
Oh.
And then when, like, near the end, she wasn't really able to hold a proper conversation with you, but she'd ask, she'd say names, she'd ask for people. And the one person she was asking for was my cousin Claire, and my cousin Claire was on holiday at the time, like, I think it was a honeymoon actually.
Yeah.
So nobody had told her, right? Because why would you ruin the honeymoon? And then when she got back from holiday, she was told, she came, she saw my nan, and my nan died the next day. So it's like, my nan made a choice, right? Like, my nan made a choice. It feels like that way anyway.
Yeah,
like,
it's
she
like,
made a choice.
I'm not dying till I see this person.
Right. She's like, I've seen everyone, but I'm waiting for you.
Yeah.
And then she saw her, and then she was like, alright, cool, I'm done now.
You know what would be so cool? Imagine after she's so clear, she's like, alright, good night.
Yeah, that's what it felt like, right? That's what it felt like. Because we were there that day. Like, me and my mum were the last people to see her.
Yeah.
And she was just, I mean, she kept asking for water and stuff, but she was just peaceful, right? She didn't seem in pain.
Yeah.
Not too much, not that I can remember anyway. And then, she just went, right? But yeah, like, she was just, she was an incredible woman. Incredible woman.
I feel like that kind of has affected you in a positive way. Like, you have this hardworking, your nan, your mum.
Yeah.
It's like, and also like having had, what do you call it, bread and ham. You know what? Yeah, there's something about the struggle. Like if you've gone through the real struggle where you actually had no money, and that's not because you're like someone took your money away, or it's like you appreciate like the smallest things.
Yep. And I think the struggle as well is like, really, moving to London was the first time that I properly struggled with money. Like I didn't realise it at the time, but my mum and dad, when they were together, were pretty well off, right? They both had a car. We lived in a really nice house.
Did they ever leave you anything?
Sorry?
Did they ever leave you anything? Inheritance or anything?
I mean, my mum, when she passed, left me the house. So there was a house. Not the house that I grew up in. She had to move because part of the story is basically when my father left, he took a lot of the money that we had as a family, right? And because my mum had custody over me and my sister, she had to keep the house.
Yeah.
But the mortgage wasn't paid, and the mortgage repayments were far too much for her to afford. So we had to move relatively soon after. But the house that she bought, the second time she bought outright with basically everything she had.
Yeah.
And when we were living at the house I grew up in, like, she struggled. We didn't know it really at the time because we were too young to understand what that meant. But she struggled, and then struggled again when we moved to the second house. But my mom was also an alcoholic at that point, right? So the struggle that I went through wasn't necessarily financial, but it was definitely emotional.
Yeah.
But the first time I struggled financially really was moving to London. Like I moved out when I was living in Telford, but I moved out with friends, so the load is kind of shared, and rent in Telford, or where we live was Stafford, it's like relatively low, right? So for a 2-bed house, we paid like £600 a month or something stupid like that, combined, right?
Wow.
So it's basically nothing. Do you know what I mean? Even me working on an apprenticeship wage was fine to pay that.
Yeah.
But coming to London, where essentially 3/4 of my wage was my rent, and all of that, like that was rough. But I think you're right that something that's utterly apparent about life is that struggle is important, but the right kind of struggle. You know what I mean?
Makes you appreciate life.
It does.
Sure.
It really does, and it makes you appreciate the things that are good and appreciate the things that are bad as well, because you need both. But I think that it's really difficult to preach struggle to somebody who's struggling through no choice of their own, in a way that's utterly detrimental to their life, right? Like somebody that's utterly poor, and has absolutely nothing. That's it's too extreme of a struggle in some fashions, right? In the same vein, somebody that's utterly rich is struggling in a different way. And it's equally
it is
too
still
extreme.
they still have their own struggles,
Of
but
course.
in terms of like
course.
financial struggle, it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think say parents or guardians should really expose how the struggle that they're going through to their kids? Because I feel like sometimes parents struggle, they don't tell their kids, and they like go into alcoholism or whatever, drugs, and the kids like, Mum, what's happening? Like, do you feel like parents should be?
Absolutely. So it wasn't until there was really weird times in my childhood where my mom realised that, and this is gonna sound really arrogant, but it's not like that. She realised that I was the alpha now, right? That I'd kind of taken over that role.
How old were you at that time?
I don't know, 13 maybe.
Okay. That's a lot of pressure though.
But I didn't really feel pressure. Like, I was just doing what my nan told me. Like, honestly, that's how it
your
felt.
nan's a legend.
My nan is she is a phenomenal woman. One of the greatest women I've ever met. Right? I was just doing what I was told, really. And there was a time then when my mom slowly started to open up about how she was feeling. And at the time, again, I was 13, I didn't understand really, truly, I understand the words she was saying, but I didn't understand the gravity of which she was saying it. And she was utterly depressed, right? Utterly depressed. And deep into alcoholism, right? And I had no method to stop it. Right?
Did she tell you about the alcohol?
No, but we knew because, so without, I mean, I guess we can go into it, it's fine. Like, how it started was my father used to work away. He used to work in Wales, so it was like a 2.5 hour drive every day for him, both ways, like 4 hours total. and he would leave before we wake up. And then when he'd come back, my mum had finished work and she'd make dinner for them, and they'd sit down over a bottle of wine and they'd have a conversation about their day, right?
Yeah.
When he left, she continued to drink the same bottle of wine, and then 1 became 2, became 3, became 4, became 5, became 6 some nights, right? And
7 bottles of wine.
6 usually.
6.
So
Wow.
so the most I ever saw her go was 6, but usually it'd be 2 or 3, right? 6 was a bad night. And then, but we'd see her drink it, right? And because we were young, we had no method to stop her, right? What were we gonna do? We had no money, right? So you know, it's not like we could. If we smashed all the bottles in the house, which I did once, she'd just buy more, right? Like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do?
I feel like I would have done that as well.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's very little that you can do, and equally, I didn't have the ability to communicate in a way that would get through to her. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my mom, you know, my mom taught me from a very young age that if you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it by your own choice, not because somebody tells you to do it. Right?
That's a good lesson.
And you know, I mean, it wasn't a lesson I enjoyed at the time, but it's still, you know.
Yeah.
And there was a time when my mom decided, okay, I'm done now. And she just stopped and never drank again, ever, right? And that was it. It was just done. But
I wonder what triggered that.
She was told she was going to die, basically, because she just done so much damage to her body, and she was never she was overweight, right?
Yeah.
And she was also riddled with tons of other medical problems. So, you know, not only and I understand completely why she did what she did. Like, she'd raised 2 children.
Yeah.
She'd been involved in a marriage that didn't go how she wanted. She'd been, I mean, he was an arsehole, right? Like, really, he was an arsehole, my father. And so she'd been involved, and she blamed herself for choosing that man, right, to father her children, right? And then she had all these medical problems and everything else, and she just felt like the work she'd put in, she hadn't been rewarded by life. Really, that's what it was. Yeah. So she just decided, fuck it. You know what I mean? Fuck it, I'm just going to live how I want to live. And the way that, or not even that, it was more that she was just trying to feel less pain, right? Honestly, that's what it was. Physical and emotional. And the way that she did that was just get drunk, right? Because she wouldn't feel the pain, or at least she wouldn't remember the pain the next morning.
It's very weird because, like, I mean, I know you don't drink, but it's that whole drinking to forget. When I drink and I'm having an issue, it just heightens the whole situation. I just feel the emotions more. Yeah,
and that's what happened to Mum too, to be honest.
Don't get how people drink to forget. Because if I drink, that means I can't control my emotions. I'm going to be crying. It's going to be talking about it. When I'm sober, I'm just like, I feel like I can handle.
Yeah.
So I just don't know how people like do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it does is for my mum anyway, I think it numbed some of it. In her brain, it may have numbed it, but outwardly, she was very, very emotional. Very, very emotional. You know, I always said it, like, after 6 p.m, World War III was incoming every single night, right?
Wow.
Because that's what would happen.
Imagine.
Right?
Such a household.
Yeah, but it
for
was
a child, I mean.
Yeah, and it was so strange because in the morning, she never had a hangover, right? This woman was fucking incredible, right? Never had a hangover, and
I bet she woke up super early as well.
I mean, yeah, she got us ready for school every morning, so, you know, and she also would never. I mean, I question this a lot, but she used to say that she would never remember what happened the night before, and I struggle to believe that. But if she did remember, she put on an amazing face to make us believe she didn't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they were rough nights, they were rough years, in the evenings anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, you just learn to endure, right? And I think that's one of the biggest lessons, that was the struggle. The struggle was learning to endure, right? And learning that although it's relatively mentally damaging, and the reason why I don't drink is that, but it's like,
okay, you know what, now that, because when we first met and then it's like, oh, he doesn't drink, I was just like, okay.
Yeah, people usually think it's religious. It's nothing.
No, I literally didn't think. I just like there must be a reason. I was asking. It's like, was he an alcoholic?
Nah, like really. When I say I used to lie essentially, and I tell people, it's because I always drive on nights out and whatever. It's nothing to do with that. It's because my mom was an alcoholic, and I saw enough that I just don't give I don't need that in my life. And frankly, there's probably an element of fear in there as well. I imagine if I get drunk, I'd be a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, don't get drunk.
No, like honestly, I think
if you know your energy when you're sober and think if I get drunk, no one's gonna be alive.
Well, I just think it's like a lot of, you know, one of the really bad things that came out of my childhood was for a long time I felt like I had to be in control of everything, right? Like mostly myself, but that then extrapolated out to a lot of other things. And it's because in the household I felt like if I couldn't control the situation, my mum and my sister could get hurt, right? Yeah. So it was just a natural that, you know, my nan wasn't there to, you know, she lived in Wales like 2.5-3 hours away, right? So it wasn't like I could just, she couldn't see a situation in person and check me for being like, allow that to go or don't allow that to go or whatever. So I kind of built this facade that I needed to be in control of everything. And that thankfully has, as I've got older and I don't have to be that person anymore, has kind of whittled away a lot. I still like to be in control of myself, but I don't really care about being in control of other situations. And I think things like...
I was gonna ask, because sometimes when I think I also have struggled with like control and wanting to control everything. Sometimes it kind of takes the fun away from things.
Sure.
And it's like you realize later on, it's like, oh, that could have been an opportunity to have fun, and it's like just trying to control everything.
I mean, I don't really do fun, to be honest.
Why not? What do you mean?
I don't really do it. In the same vein, like, so I don't really do happiness either.
Okay, please. Wait. Like, please explain. What does that mean? Because, like, maybe your definition of fun and happiness is going out doing something. Yeah. That is not actually definition of fun and happiness.
Sure.
What does that mean to you?
So, fun. I don't know what fun means, really. I try to do things that give purpose and meaning, right? Okay. I feel like fun is meaningless, essentially. Like, and this, I know, I'm well aware, like, this is something that Imogen, my partner, struggles with all the time, right?
I'm gonna throw you away.
Right? It's like, she loves Halloween, for instance.
Right.
I just don't get it. Like, I don't get it. It's not meaningful to me. Right?
Why?
I think... And this is going to sound really morbid, right? Really, really morbid, but I don't mean it like that. I feel like the fun was taken out of life as a kid, right? Like, but, and let me state this, like, people say this all the time about how tragic it is. It's fucking not. Like, it's really, really not. Like, the choices that were made for me and that I made and that I accepted have undoubtedly proved so profitable. It's just that I didn't have the same childhood that most kids had. Around me, anyway. Now, don't get it twisted. I still went out and played football on the street with all my mates. I still went out and got into scuffles. I still went out and climbed trees and did all that stuff. Yeah. All of it. I did all of that stuff. Okay. But I looked at it differently.
How did you look at it?
Like, kids would look at it, thinking back on it now, and like the perception of what it was now. Back then, kids wanted to play out because it was fun. I wanted to play out because it was an escape.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why I got into things. Like, I also have an obsessive personality in a lot of ways. Like, you know, the control part was important for that. But like, I got into games, right? So I've told this on the podcast before, but me and my friends got so good at Call of Duty 4 that we were playing with like pro players and we were like 15, right? But I would spend stupid amounts of time on that game. One, because it was competitive and I'm a male and I enjoy it to be competitive, but also because it was an escape. Okay. I could be somewhere else and be somebody else if I wanted to be. Okay. Right? So, fun to me, and like, again, people like Tom, me and Tom are just talking now about playing Call of Duty now because it's fun. Back then...
But that's fun in itself, right?
But it's only fun if you win. Right? And this is the point, right? Like it's fun because it's competitive, it's combative, it's fun because it's meaningful if you win. If I lose, I don't have fun. There's no fun. And like, fun to me is just a sticky label that I put on things to appease people.
No, that's ridiculous.
Like, to me, things, of course, there's things that I get vast enjoyment from, right? Like sitting down and sharing a meal with my partner, or just talking to her, or having this conversation is vastly enjoyable. It's not fun though. Like, it's important and it's meaningful, not fun. And I have the same thing for happiness. I don't even believe happiness exists. I think happiness is a construct. It doesn't actually exist.
Wow. I feel like,
this took a left turn, right?
Yeah. I feel like, you know, it's like a mixture of emotions. I'm like, my feelings are hurt, but then at the same time, I'm like, what is this new information I'm learning?
Like, I feel, on the happiness thing, I feel like, okay, the way that happiness is marketed to us.
Okay. Oh, marketed.
I mean, it is, right? It is, in the same that, okay, if you're a male, for instance, if you buy this magazine, or if you do this amount of work, or in the gym, or you do this, or you buy this piece of clothing, or this piece, you're going to be happy. Bullshit. Doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, right? How many times have you purchased something, whatever it is, and for a split second been like, yeah, and then 2 days later be like, oh yeah, it's just a thing. Excitement and happiness, two different things, right? Like, and this is something that again I got into as a child, is like the meaning of words, or at least the meaning of, to me, of words, right? Because again, control and whatever, like I used to be like, that's not how that word means. That's not the case. Like, what a word means to you is going to be completely different potentially to what a word means to me.
Yeah.
Like, happiness feels like it's marketed to be this, it's heaven essentially, right?
Okay. Like,
it's deemed to be an end goal, but the world just doesn't work like that. The world works in chaos and order. Right, there is going to be things. There's going to be some times, right, where you're gonna have a week where every action you take gets the result that you expected. Cool, that's perfect. That's exactly what you want. And there's going to be times when you lose your job and you're like, shit. Yeah. That's not what I expected. So my argument to happiness is.
But why would you put your happiness on those things?
Sure.
Why should your happiness be determined by those things?
Right, which is why happiness just doesn't exist. Because the difference is what I determine happiness to be is in waking up and having a life of meaning. But a life of meaning generally means you're struggling at the same time. And you can't have struggle and happiness at the same time. It doesn't exist. In my opinion.
So would you say happiness is at the end of the struggle?
No, because at the end of the struggle is death. Like, and I don't mean that in a morbid way either. But what I mean is like.
You're hurting my feelings.
Sorry, but like, look, the struggle is fun. Right? If we're gonna use the word fun, the struggle is fun.
Please explain the fun in the struggle. Do you mean the adrenaline, or knowing that you're working towards something, or knowing that there could be life at the end of the tunnel?
It's, for me, if you're struggling, again, we're talking about struggle. I mean struggling in the sense that you're able to feed yourself every day, right? You're able to go home to somewhere where you have shelter, where warmth is, and some clothes, right? Those things aren't struggle. Those things are basic necessities.
Okay.
But like, a struggle is like, let's say you've got a new job and you're grinding and you're trying to get better and you're trying to do something, or you're doing a martial art, or you're doing a podcast, or you're doing a thesis, an essay, whatever it is, right? If you choose to be involved in a struggle, right, that you determine is going to make better of your personality, of yourself, of your life, that's fun. Right? To me, it's not fun, but I'm going to use the word fun. Okay,
I would say that's just living life.
To you?
To me.
Yes.
Because the thing is, I've seen the struggle.
Yes.
And I know living life, it has ups and downs.
Exactly.
And when I'm down, I know I'm going to be up anytime soon. It might take longer. Right. I don't see that as a struggle. Right. I know the struggle to me is the days I went when pretty similar to you, like going with peanut butter and bread for a whole month.
There's no food.
Yeah. Or like waiting for someone to help you, or going to your friend's house because you know there's a chance that you might have a meal there. Do you get what I mean? Like that's a struggle.
Yep.
But it's interesting hearing a different definition of like the struggle to you is the things like, having a job or doing that.
And I mean, this is a really hot word, and I'm going to use it in my interpretation, but it's like my struggle is privileged, essentially. Right? Okay. Because people forget I'm able to live in London, right, in a house that I choose to live in, not that the government has told me to live in.
Yeah.
I'm able to pay that bill from my own bank account.
Yeah.
And I'm then able to have enough funds at the end of it to do something, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Right? That's an incredibly privileged position.
Okay.
And us being able to sit here and have this conversation on a table that you've purchased,
yeah,
with microphones that you've purchased,
yeah,
means that we're in an incredibly privileged position. Right?
That's true, yeah.
You know, behind you is a bookcase full of books that you've bought. Right? Books! Imagine! That other humans have written! Like,
don't try and gas me up.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's an incredibly privileged position that we're in.
Yeah.
And we're able to choose struggle. And I think that, and this is kind of, like, I just feel, it's really hard for me to convey this. It's such a massive point in my head, but it's like, I almost see that happiness is unnecessary.
Right.
Because instead, I could be getting better.
Okay. How?
Doesn't matter. You just get better in every facet, right? And, you know, whether that be, I was having a conversation with a podcast I'm going to release to this Sunday, right? Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. And we've talked about that, or my interpretation of the meaning of life is that you merely just get knowledge and pass it on. And the gravity of that is that you only ever do your best work. And when you do your best work, it's going to come out naturally. Like, you don't sit down and be like, I'm going to write the best piece of writing I've ever written. It doesn't happen. Like, if you are compelled to write something, it's probably going to be better than if you forced yourself to write something. In the same vein, it's like, if you want to do something, you're going to do it. If you don't want to do something, it's probably going to be shit. And that's probably, right? There's always an asterisk, there's always an outside of the rule. But I think happiness is just, it's almost a waste of time, right? Because you're resting. You know what I mean? Like, happiness is like, I did it, I achieved. Bullshit, keep working. Like, and, you know, as I said, I'm ultimately lazy in a lot of ways. I'm lazy with food.
Yeah.
I'm lazy with looking after my body.
Okay.
But it's because, really, if I look at it deep down, it's because I don't give a fuck. Like what I care about is what's in here, right? Because this is what's going to change things.
Yeah.
Not, and, you know, I'm just as susceptible as everyone else to body image problems and all that kind of stuff. But when I really, really get down to it, I know that the power of me is in my brain, not in my body. Right? Yeah. So
that's a very important thing. Like, a lot of people don't know. It's like your body is just a facade. Your brain
it's just a meat vehicle.
Yeah, it's just like, that's what you're presenting people, but the power is in the mind, your brain. Use that.
And of course, it's incredibly difficult to believe that. And I struggle, as I say, I struggle with it all the time, right? Like, I get on the scale every morning and I'm ashamed. I've been ashamed of my scale when I'm cutting.
Really?
Oh yeah, every day. Almost every day, yeah.
Are you shaming yourself on purpose, or?
Yeah, probably, because I know that I can be better, right? That's what it is. Really, I know.
That's the struggle, huh?
Yeah, it's the struggle. But it's the struggle every day of, you know, I know that I fail every day too, because not every day, but, you know, I'll say to myself, I'm going to do this, and I don't do it, and I get annoyed with myself that I don't do it, and then I fall back into all the same patterns of, like, obsessive compulsive, of like, okay, I'm going to stop everything, control everything, and then you're like, okay, that's not going to work, right? And then it's this cycle that you're always trying to catch yourself on, right? And that's the struggle for that particular thing anyway. But you know, I just feel like if I could live a life of meaning and purpose with no happiness, I'd take that, because I feel like my life is entirely finite, right? And it's actually something that keeps me up at night at the moment, right? For the past sort of month or so. It's probably because, like, my mom's birthday is the 24th of September. Okay. So, like,
September, baby, hey.
Yeah, like, now that time is a weird time anyway now. But it always reminds me that life is finite and that death is always coming, right? Like, there's and again, I don't mean that in a morbid way, because
I think that just happens for people that have lost big number of family members and stuff.
But, like, I think it's like, why waste time being happy when you could just be better? Because like, I feel like there's a global consciousness, and this was a point I was making about the podcast with Dave and Sarah, is like, I feel like whether you want to call it God, whether you want to call it religion, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there is a global consciousness in some fashion that we're all adding to. The fact that we're having this conversation and that maybe one person, just you re-editing it, right, is going to listen to it and possibly take something again from it. Like, we're adding, like, one day you may have children and you're going to tell your children possibly something from this conversation. You're adding to the global consciousness that exists in the world, because your child may go to China and have a conversation with someone there and
about this
same podcast, right?
Yeah.
So we should only ever endeavor to add value to that global consciousness. And to me, I believe my role, or what I want my role to be, is adding meaning and purpose.
Okay.
I feel like
that's a nice way to round how you've been making me feel.
Okay.
Round things off, cause
okay. Well,
that makes me feel better now.
Cool. But yeah, I don't. To me, you know, if people say, "Are you happy with your partner?" and I'm like, "Yeah, of course," but it's not. It's not happiness. It's, I feel.
Why are people asking you these questions?
I don't know, but it's like one of those. I mean, it's a white people thing, I think.
Okay,
honestly, I think it is. It's like,
okay.
Are you happy in your relationship? Like, yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in it. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't ask me fucking stupid questions. But
like, no way. You can't ask me such questions. Like, it's not like I get offended. I'm just like, who gives you the right to ask me such a question?
Sure.
Like, it's none of your business.
Sure, but like, it's not happiness. It's, I feel like I have a purpose. I feel like I have a meaning. I feel like there's lots and lots of deep, meaningful connections that are then fostered by love and affection and all those kind of things. And like, but that's not happy. Like, I've just described those things in words that aren't happy. Therefore, it's not happy. Do you know what I mean?
Well, if your partner is listening, he definitely loves you. He's smiling while even talking about
Yeah. I mean, and she knows. Like, we tell each other like fucking 15 times a day. Like, it's stupid. Do you know what I mean? But it just comes. It's just natural. It's just said. It's not like I must tell my partner that I love her now. It's not like that. Like, if it is, don't be in that relationship. Like, it's not. That's not the one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just don't. I don't feel like happiness is a construct.
Well, it's good to hear your thoughts on happiness.
Like,
to be fair, like it's good to hear how other people see life or describe things, or what words, how words have different meanings to some people.
Yes.
What you call struggle is different, but then you explaining it makes sense.
Of course, I mean, what's crazy to me is, you know, I grew up around some people that had some actual tough childhoods. Like
but you also.
But see, this is the bullshit that people say.
I don't want you to disregard your struggle, because
Right.
you should literally remain in that thought. Like, yes, that was struggle.
But to me,
don't compare it to other people's struggle.
I hear that.
Yeah.
But to me, it wasn't that bad. Like, when I tell people, I'm like, it really wasn't that bad. Like, on the face of it, right? On the face of it, it sounds awful. But that's only because I've told the awful parts, right?
No.
My
Don't take this the wrong way. I know, like, you had some great memories.
Of course.
But obviously, right now, you're just sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, on the face of it, my mother was still incredibly loving. She went without for us all the time. We never went without, me and my sister, ever. If we wanted to do something, she would do her absolute best to make sure it was done. Like, we still were able to go on holidays to different countries.
Yeah.
It was the same fucking country, it was Spain, right? But whatever. Like, but different
I think
parts
that's the
of
go-to.
Spain.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was cheap, it was affordable, it was sunshine, and we got to not be in our house. And, you know, like, not many people can say that. So, all right, like, yeah, every single night there was generally an argument and it was generally brutal.
Yeah.
Like, the morning times were times to savor in a lot of ways. So, yeah, the struggle, I mean, it was what it was, right?
It was still a struggle.
I guess so.
If you're looking at it on a spectrum, I'm sure it falls under maybe
average.
Yeah. But it is still a struggle. Like,
Sure.
I think.
Sure.
Given that I'm not from this country, wasn't born here, it's like when you come here and people talk about struggle, it's like, but then when you live here for a while, you just like, you realize like there are people in this country suffering. Like, yes, this is like a first world country, but there are people going without meals, people sleeping on the streets, people just like.
I think the biggest struggle here that, and maybe this is a question I had for you before, is like, what was community like back home?
I mean, everyone's there for each other.
Right.
Like,
that's the lack of struggle you have there, and that's the biggest struggle we have here.
Yeah, especially in London.
Even in Telford.
Really?
Telford's tiny, right? It was tiny when I was there. You knew everyone through somebody else.
But I would imagine people would be looking after each other and
Absolutely
stuff.
not.
Wow.
Absolutely not. No way. Like, you had a set of friends, and that was it. Like, the people you were beefing was somebody's brother. Like, your friend's brother was people that you were beefing. Right?
Yeah.
And it was like, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any fucking sense. And here we are. At the same road, scrapping the same people. Right? It's not like that. And I think community doesn't exist, really. It exists but I think that's a people thing, that's a population thing, it's a mass thing.
I think it's also like when people have less, they tend to share.
Yes.
And when people have more, they tend to keep for themselves. So I think that's when more of a community, like in Africa, people it's like, oh yeah, don't worry, I'll look after your child, or you go work, or sometimes
whatever.
You tend to call those people like your cousins, and then realize, mate, when we
they're just
don't
some
have
guy.
any, this is some random guy, but you just end up calling him cousin, call people aunties, and I think you've had this like auntie, like people just call any black woman just like auntie. You don't know this woman. It's just like something we have been. I don't know. It's
but
really...
like, to me, that's far more valuable than wealth, like material wealth, right?
Yeah.
Like, again, I'm not one of these people that's, just like fucking burn everything down and we'll start again. No, like, let's not be fucking stupid. But it's like, there should be a basic necessity that everyone has that's met, and that's food, water, shelter, clothing, etc. The basics that they can go home and not feel like they're going to get robbed, or not feel like their house is going to burn down from fucking terrible cladding or whatever. They should be able to go home and feel safe in their environment, and then we can start talking about communities and these kinds of things, because I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right that the less you have, the more you share. And I think but that's also a teaching at the end of the day, because as I said, when I was born, my parents, from what I can gather, were they weren't well off. They were fine. I mean, they were able to go out and buy some clothes if they wanted to. They were able to get a new car when the old one broke, or whatever it was. They were able to do that, right? And they were able to go and buy a house off plan. And the house I grew up in was a 5-bedroom house, 2 garages. Right?
Damn.
Like, it was a serious house.
Yeah, it is a serious
now,
house.
of course, like in Telford, that was 180 grand, right? But it's still a 5-bedroom house with 2 fucking garages. Do you know what I mean? And my parents were still able to get a mortgage on that shit. So clearly they were doing all right. But my mum always was preaching to us about caring and sharing and being selfless and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that stuff was bred in me. And, when I got money, I gave money. Always. There'd be people that, wouldn't ask for money, but I knew they needed the money. So I'd give them the money.
Yeah.
And it's because I felt like, and I still say, is like, if I have it, I'm not going to spend it all. So you might as well have some. And I know that I've already covered my necessities. I've paid my rent this month.
My bank details.
Jesus. But like, and even now when I have a lot less money than I had 2 years ago, it's like, if I can spare it, why not? Why not? What good does it give me?
Yeah.
And the answer's not a lot, really.
That's super cool. But anyways, I want to hear about, do you have any interests? I know you told us, because I'm really, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm interested in a fucking ton of things, really. Like,
though it doesn't make you happy, but we want to hear it.
Yeah, so I have my hands in quite a few pies at the moment.
Okay.
Like, I have the podcast, I obviously have my job.
Tell us about, what's the name of your podcast?
The name of my podcast, Jesus, shameless plugs. The name of my podcast is All About Balance. You can find it anywhere, iTunes, Spotify, all of the podcast apps.
Yeah.
My Instagram, which is Harry Powell _BJJ, I think.
Yeah.
I'll quote that somewhere. But yeah, so I do the podcast. I have my job. I write for an MMA website.
Okay.
I basically just do long form articles previewing shows and telling stories of fighters and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I am a director for a grappling show
Okay.
called Pantheon Promotions. Obviously that's not doing anything at the moment, but when the lockdown and stuff eases and whatever, we'll probably be able to get back to shows with audiences, which would be cool.
Yeah.
What else I do? I'm trying to start a clothing brand for jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Obviously, I
All
train.
about what's it called? Balance
clothing.
balance clothing. Yeah.
I obviously train jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
like as much as I can. I'm gonna get back into striking, I think, because that's where my background came from.
Yeah.
But outside of all that, like stuff,
Mhm.
like I'm interested in people, right? I'm interested in psychology. I'm interested in philosophy. Like I've decided that I'm gonna write. I didn't go uni or anything like that, so I don't really know what a PhD or a thesis is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm going to do is I have a theory.
Okay.
And the theory is that humans are consciously or unconsciously building the next evolution of humanity.
Okay.
And that's AI and tech. So I'm going to write over the course of my life, probably.
Okay.
But I'm going to write a document that puts those thoughts into paper, or digital paper probably. I'm probably not going to handwrite it.
Maybe you should make a documentary.
I mean,
that would be cool. I'm only saying that
maybe.
because I'm into documentaries. So.
Yeah, and I mean, I like documentaries as well. I just think the problem with documentaries is that they're too short in a lot of ways. You can never fit in. You
can make like a series of documentaries.
Yeah, maybe. And probably what I'll do in actuality is I'll just podcast it. Right, like, because the one thing I'm going to do with the articles is, the articles that I write are like 3,500, 4,000 words sometimes, and the one that I write in the moment is probably going to be longer than that. But it's like nobody has the time to read that stuff. Or nobody chooses.
What do you mean?
Nobody chooses to read that stuff, and I think it's a lot harder to digest 5,000 words than it is to hear 15 minutes of a podcast. Right, but I feel like, going back to what I said before about adding to the pantheon of knowledge, adding to the global consciousness, I feel like that this is probably my work. Probably.
Okay. Yeah.
Alongside opening a jiu-jitsu school and doing all that sort of stuff in my future, I think something literary where I put something down on paper that may be absolute trash, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's something there.
Well,
I'm
excited for your future.
Looking
forward. I actually want make that a book, like 3,000 words. Like, people do love reading.
Yeah, I mean that the plan will be to, because there's so many angles to that, to my thoughts about us creating ourselves as AI. Like, there's so many thoughts that it probably will be a 100,000 page book or whatever it will be. But it's organic, right? It's natural. I'm not putting myself in any pressure to do it.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any dislikes or?
Any dislikes?
Yeah.
Well, happiness, obviously. Nah, I don't know.
You're terrible.
I think. Do I have any dislikes?
Yeah.
Wasting time, I think, is the biggest one.
Okay.
Wasting time. Because, I just... Maybe this is just the period that I'm in my life, right? But I feel like time is absolutely so unbelievably precious. And I feel like if we waste that...
Okay.
I'm not really somebody that believes in regret too much,
okay.
but I
like you said, too much.
Because I feel like regret in some ways natural, and what I'm about to say is about to, be hypocritical to the statement I've just made.
Yeah.
It's like, if I make 85, whatever it is, if I make 80, I don't want to look back on my life and be like, I should have done more. Because that's regret. You know what I mean? Like, I can look back at my life now, 10 years ago when I was 17, and be like, the decisions I made were mine, and I accept the decisions I made were what I made, and I obviously wanted to make those decisions at the time. Whether I would have made them now would have been totally different, but I don't want to be 85 and be like, shit, man, I should have done more.
I think you're doing a lot.
I mean,
don't put too much pressure on yourself, honestly.
But
if from the things you just said, like, by 85, I'm sure you would have done a lot. Please retire 50. Chill. I mean,
maybe
for someone who's not looking to have any fun or happiness, just, I think, don't consume yourself with like accomplishing a lot of things. Just take some time to
Yeah.
retire
I just think,
and have fun, but
I can't
not
imagine.
happiness.
I can't imagine retirement will ever be a thing for me. To be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah.
I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, me and my missus went to Portugal last year, and it was incredible. We rented a villa out in the hills, and we just went walking, and we just did nothing essentially, and it was beautiful. One of the best holidays I've ever had. Right.
Maybe you need to do more of that.
Right.
Nothing.
But what I was doing while I was there was thinking, right? And that's something like last night, for instance. Me and Amy, we went to bed about midnight, right, 11:15, and I was up.
Yeah.
She was snoring next to me, right? And I was up probably until 1:30, 2, just thinking about anything. And that's...
When you say thinking, are you on your phone or you just literally lying there thinking?
No, I'm lying. Yeah, I'm lying there.
Okay.
I don't look at my phone. I'm just lying there, face up, looking at the ceiling, thinking about... Like, last night's thoughts were, I went and did a private with a jiu-jitsu private, so I was thinking about that a lot. I then ended up on death, obviously. And then from there, it just extrapolates out to the universe, right? It just goes as far as your mind can think. And I don't switch off. I just don't. Like, my brain doesn't switch off. It never has. I don't...
Is that something that you would want to do?
Absolutely not. What's the point?
Okay.
Like, it's wasting time. Do you know what I mean?
Switching off is wasting time?
Yeah, I think so. Like, maybe that's going to be wrong when I'm 50, burnt out, and I've got nothing left, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. But I feel... Go on.
I was going to say, do you... Because obviously it's... I would imagine, like, from what we just spoke about, your brain is, like, the most important thing, and your thoughts.
Yeah,
I feel like you need to give your brain a break, especially, like, going away and doing absolutely nothing. Yeah. And I know you can't stop thinking, but just, like, going away from your everyday normal life and just, like...
100%.
You know, I feel like the brain needs an exercise which is away from the usual routine and in a different environment and all that.
And I do get that. I do get that I do get that right now, to be honest. Like, I get that when I play games with Tom or Tommy or whoever. Like, I get to still go and, like, I let go of... Because the game consumes you, right? Because you have to be focused in order to be... Like, my brain just bottoms out and I don't think about anything but the game. When I'm sat with my missus and we're watching something or having a conversation... I'm just thinking about that. I'm not thinking about all these other extraterrestrial things that I have. Like, I'm able to just be, right? And those are my relaxation moments, really. Those are my moments where I can just, let go of whatever it is and just be who I am with who I have.
Okay.
And, I don't, I'm not in any way, shape or form, like, I wouldn't class myself as intelligent or anything like that. Like, I'm not one of these people that's going to change the world or whatever. Like, honestly, I don't feel that. Like, I have friends that are...
You will do, though.
Maybe. that are far more intelligent than I am academically and all this sort of stuff. But I just think, like, I always have. I always have. But you're right, that you definitely need balance, right? You need... Oh, Jesus, I've said it. I absolutely fucking hate that part. People come on the podcast, right, and they're like, oh, yeah. And we talk about something like, it's just all about balance, isn't it? And I'm like, fuck off. Like, oh, Jesus.
I mean, that's where it comes from, no?
I mean, I guess so. Like, this is so fucking stupid, but one of the main blockers I had for starting the podcast was, what do I call it? And I was thinking about that for absolutely ages, and I can't quite remember, which is one of the reasons why it's good, right? Why the name works, is because I can't quite remember how it happened.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was in a conversation where I was like, yeah, it's just all about balance, and I was like, that's it, actually. That's the one. But it is about that. It is about being... Like here, for instance, when we're having this conversation, I'm not thinking about other things. I'm not thinking about where I've got to be later. I'm not thinking about whatever. I'm thinking about the questions you asked me, and I'm answering them in a fashion that is... I'm attempting to articulate myself in a way that is true to me, but also will make sense to other people. Right?
Okay, yeah. But I think balance is like...
It's key.
It's key.
It's
like,
key.
if you don't have balance in a lot of things, you're just gonna get lost.
100%.
Yeah, so...
You know, I try to follow... You know, I said at the very start of this that I follow one of Nietzsche's teachings, which is don't be tied to any ideology, but which is really ironic because that's an ideology in itself. But anyway, Like the other thing that I try to do is I have 2 tattoos on my thigh, and it says chaos and order. And there was a German psychologist called Carl Jung who tried to teach the importance of being in the middle of chaos and order.
Yeah.
Not too far on order, because then you need that chaos, but equally you can't live your life just solely in chaos, because it just doesn't work. So living your life in the middle, right? And in the middle, to me, is balance.
Yeah.
But having knowledge of how far both realms go.
Yeah.
Because if you wouldn't know what the middle is unless you know the extremities of both sides. And you could call chaos and order happiness and sadness. You could call it elation and depression. You could call it whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
However you brand it is the same. But you're right that finding a happy medium in the middle allows you to be fruitful, I think.
Yeah. I think from what you just said, having balance in life is just you make better decisions.
Yes.
Like knowing where to place your life, or okay, like now I can't be in the middle, I need to be on this side because that makes sense for now.
Yes.
And then it's just easier to make decisions in general.
Yeah. And how did you come to that position?
I mean, my story's another day. Do you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
I've had so many things happen that have shaped who I am.
Of course.
And the decisions that I make. And then, I don't know, I think most of my life I've had to raise myself. So I live by my decisions, my way. Like, whatever I say is just like, it's going to affect me. So I need to look out for me. And I don't know, it's just a bit long. Of course, I've failed. Sometimes the decisions I've made, I'm like, damn, like, what was I thinking?
Sure.
But then that's just like a learning curve. Like, not like you said, no regrets. It's not like I want to get to 85 and think, I want to get to 85 and look at that thing that I did that was stupid. And be like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
I literally did that, and look at me now.
Yeah.
Like I'm not scared. Like I feel like even people that do stupid things, like say send nudes, you should never regret that. Do it with your chest. Like you send nudes, like it's out there. There's a chance someone will put that stuff up and it'll be out in the world. Don't cry about it because you sent it. You actually sent it, knowingly. No one forced you.
It's still a fucking scumbag move if you put that up.
It is, but it shouldn't be something that destroys you. Sure. Like
sure.
It is what it is. Like mate, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm grown. If my kids say it, I just be like, yeah, mum was on some crud.
Fucking hell. Yeah, I made a decision.
Do you know what I mean? Because like I think parents like shelter us from seeing such things. Like mistakes are common. Like as a child, you make a mistake and you think, oh, how am I going to get over this? But it's life. Like life is just full of mistakes and learning. And the sooner you learn that when you're younger, the better your life is going to be.
How would you preach that to your children?
I would try, and I hope I do really try to be transparent. Like if my kids see me upset, I'll tell them I am upset. Like mommy's upset, mommy needs a moment. Like right now, you've said this, that pissed me off, and we need to stop talking for a day. Just be transparent. Like this is how I handle my emotions. Like that's happened. I just don't like, because when you're a child and you see your parents like say argue, you just see it's like there's an energy in the house. Like. But you don't know what's happening. Yeah. And no one's telling you anything. Yeah. I feel like kids should be told, like, yeah, like mommy and daddy are not happy at the moment. We're not breaking up. Like, just so they know, yes, they're mommy and daddy. And it's easier for them to protect you. Because, like, kids talk. Because they'll go to school and ask the teacher, like, mommy, daddy slapped mommy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And then it's like, okay, that's, like, a bad environment for a child. Yeah. So I'll try that approach.
Yeah, I think that's positive. I think the best theory on parenting so far that I've heard is from two of my friends. They're Scandinavian, and they say I don't want to parent my child. I want to enable my child. So like they've tried to start his life by putting him on a really good diet, and he can speak both Finnish and English. He's like 2, 3, right? Like he's not fluent, obviously, but he can say words in both languages, and he can understand the difference between both of them. And the toys that he plays with, they're not massive branded huge things. They're just normal regular toys that we would have played with as kids. And he doesn't get much screen time. He doesn't get, if he's in the room, there's no phone anywhere. No sight of a phone, no sight of a TV on. There may be some music or whatever, but that's it, right? And they interact with him, and they really make him feel like a person, right? And then...
That's very important.
Right, so important. And then when he grows up, they're like, he can do whatever he wants, because we're going to have set a baseline for him that's good diet, good communication, and love, right? Because then whatever he does, he'll habitually fall back on whatever these things are that he was taught as a child. And it's just unbelievably intelligent.
It is intelligent, but it's very dangerous as well.
Yeah.
I think, back to your word, you need to have a balance in that. You need to be very careful, because if a child's mind is always developing, and if they know you're just enabling anything they're doing, it's like, oh, let me try that, let me test my parents, let me see what they're doing. It's like,
and of course there's that as well, of course, because part of growing up is finding out what your boundaries are, right? And I mean, I don't know how old were you when you moved to the UK?
I think like 12.
Okay, cool. So you probably tested some boundaries in those 12 years, right? Yeah, and you'd have found out pretty quick where those boundaries were.
I was that kid.
Yeah. And it's the same. It was the same for me, right? Like my father was violent, but my mom was never violent ever, right? But when she shouted, "Holy fuck!" you knew you were in trouble, right? It was one of them. Like, if mom shouted, you were like, "Oh shit!" Like. Something's happening now. So I mean, I think that being transparent to your children and showing that you're, because I think that the thing as well is you put your parents on a pedestal, right? Yeah,
that you're human.
And you feel like they're more like you. Thinking about it now, like when I was a kid, my mom and dad were gods, really. Like, they were untouchable, they were unbreakable, they knew everything. They had control over everything. And then when you realise that was a really sombering moment for me, is when I realised my mom was just a woman, just a regular human.
Trust.
Right, and you were like, oh shit. You were like, oh, well, this changes everything. And I feel like that's kind of a life-shattering moment in a way. That would be better spent if you knew that your mum and dad were...
Even the way you treat them, it will be different.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you respect someone more when they make you feel like you're human. Like, as a child, like, I think from how I was raised, like, being younger, your opinion means nothing.
Sure.
You're not allowed to talk. When I say being younger, as in someone 1 year older than me can tell me to shut up. Because they're older than me.
Yeah.
And I think I've always been rebellious. I'll be like, no, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, how can you, mate, we're playing together. How can you tell me to like, shush, just because you're 2 years? But it's really...
Yeah, I mean, that's nuts to me, in a way. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah, it's like,
not... In a way, I get it, because, if somebody's 20 years older than you, they may have something of worth to say to you that's going to change your life. Absolutely. Fuck me, what have I just been saying about my nan, right? My nan says something, no, just did it, right? Sure, why not? Fuck it, my nan said it must be right. But then in the same vein, I'm the same as you, that in some ways, like, I went to school and I argued with teachers a lot. Not because I wanted to be mean to them. I just disagreed with what they were saying, and I believed that what I said was right. Now, sometimes I may have been right, and sometimes, probably most of the time, I was wrong.
Be wrong,
right? But thankfully, I got in trouble for arguing with teachers, of course, because of authority and all that bullshit. But they engaged in those arguments with me, and I think that, as you say, you should understand that your parents are human. Yeah. And you should also be shown, I think, when your parents make mistakes, right? And you can sit them down and be like, I fucked up, right? And I did this, and this is the repercussions of what I've done, right?
Especially when it comes to like Christmas presents. Because I'm just like, why would you struggle to buy me a present when we need the gas bill to be paid? Mate, be like, we messed up. There's no money. What do you think? I like parents that ask their kids, what do you think? So we have this, and do you want a present? But if we get presents, we might get cold.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a cold winter. I'll be like, I want to get warm.
Yeah.
Get the heating bill paid. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care about presents now. Not now anyway. I can get one later on.
Yeah.
But
I think that's important. I think because then you're kind of, but then again, you have to meter how much of the world you show that child, because you don't want your child to lose their childhood. You don't want. But then, what's really interesting about childhood is people say, oh, it's like innocence, right? It's like this wonderful sort of place where there's no pain or suffering that you experience as an adult. And it's like, okay, you definitely have to introduce them to the adult pain and suffering slowly.
Yeah.
But you don't want it to be like a crashing coin moment where they're like, oh, so this is adult life? Fuck this.
I don't believe in innocence.
Interesting.
Like, there's no such thing. It's just like, as a child, you find out something and you immediately realize it's wrong. And you won't tell anyone. You just keep it to yourself. Because no one's preparing you for that.
Yeah.
And people think, oh, she's young, she's innocent, she doesn't know anything. Not knowing your child knows a lot. Your child has seen a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, like, getting older, becoming an adult, there's things you come across like, mate, why didn't no one tell me about this?
Yeah.
And that kind of hurts.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the biggest thing for me, the biggest thing that I'd like to achieve if I ever become a father is I'd like to be able to ask my child a question and then not be embarrassed to answer it. I think if I get to that position, I win. Like, I've won.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if I can get to a position where I'm like, did you have a good day at school today?
Yeah.
And then be like, no, I didn't have a good day at school today because somebody called me fat or ugly or whatever. And I can be like, okay, this is how we're going to deal with this.
Yeah.
Right? Or I could say to my child, what happened today? And they were like, I got in a fight, or I stole from a shop, or I, blah, 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 whatever. Be able to have a conversation with me and tell me the truth always.
I think that will start with you sharing.
Right. And I feel like if you can have that level of relationship, then you don't have to be worried about that child, really.
Yeah.
Because that child can go out and do whatever. If they come home to you and be like, I fucked up. I did this. And you'd be like, that's cool. This is why you fucked up. And this is what I did as a kid by fucking up.
Well, you think that's bad?
Yeah.
Let me tell you what happened to me at that age. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And, I think if that happens, then that's a win for me.
Well, I'm sure you're going to be a great dad. You have loads of experience, life experience. If if you're blessed to have kids. But it's been great having you. I have a few questions, quick fire questions.
All right.
We call them TGO fire questions.
All right, shoot.
Okay.
Do I have to answer with short answers, or
it's up to you? You can give us a little explanation if you feel
cool,
like.
Cool.
Do you prefer talking or texting?
Talking. Fuck me. Jesus, that's the easiest question anyone's ever asked me.
What was the last song you listened to?
Well, at the moment I'm just repeating Pot of Paper's Training Day 3 album, so it would have been something. When I was on the way here, that's what I was listening to, so it would have been one of those songs.
Okay. What's your favourite holiday destination?
I don't know, because I haven't been to it yet. To me, I feel like that's still to come. If I had to choose right now, it would have been Portugal, absolutely. I haven't asked as many people, but literally the last person did say Portugal. Yeah, so I went to,
Where'd you go in Portugal?
Just north of Faro. So Faro is the southernmost point in Portugal. Yeah. And then, we hired a car and we drove 35 miles, 40 miles up into the hills, and it was fucking beautiful. So nice.
That sounds like something.
Yeah, do it.
Oh, that's right up my street. Would you prefer invisibility or super strength?
That's a good question. If I'm rolling with Tom, super strength. If it's outside of that, probably invisibility. I don't know. That's a tough one. I think if I was a kid, I'd have said invisibility, but now I'd probably just say super strength. Like, I don't care to be invisible anymore.
I would say invisibility.
Really?
I just feel like that would be super
cool. Why though?
I don't know.
It's sneaky,
I feel like it's something that matches my personality. I have my brain. I don't need strength for that.
Yeah, I hear that. I do hear that. I think the way I took that question was like, because to me, like when I was if I wanted to be invisible, it's because I wanted to hide, right? But I don't need to hide anymore. I can just be. You know what I mean? So that's why. Like,
why are you looking at it as hiding?
But you know, but it is, right? You're invisible. Nobody can see you. You're essentially hiding, right?
I just want to walk around naked, go to the bloody.
You can do that. You can do that now. You're gonna get arrested.
I want to go to the shop. I want to go to the shop. People just see fruits getting picked up. Right. Are you a morning or night person?
Night. Fuck me. I hate the morning so badly. Like, yeah. So my missus gets up really early, goes to the gym, and then goes to work, right?
Yeah.
And when she heard my alarm go off at like 8, she came and was like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going Tom's in it." She was like, "Boy." Jesus. Yeah.
Well, I feel lucky.
I come alive at the night time, as Kanye West once said.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Night owl. Favorite ice cream flavor?
You know them ones.
I don't. Tell us.
So, there's a Ben & Jerry's, yeah?
Yeah.
That's got caramel in it. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's got a little bit of ice cream cone in it. Bruh. Run me a tub of that whenever you want. What I'll do is I'll find it, because obviously my phone's over there. I'll find it and I'll text it to you, and you can either edit it in or whatever. But bruh, it's levels. It's serious levels.
Okay. I think anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
levels.
Might go to the shop and check it out.
Do it.
I'll take this audio and be like, I want what he's describing. Right. Favorite meal of the day?
Well, I'll say the evening meal.
Okay.
The evening meal, because maybe this is a bit whatever, but the evening meal is generally the time when I get to sit down with my partner and have a conversation with her. Okay. So, and plus I find, like, if you're going to go out to a restaurant, more time you go like 6 p.m, 7 p.m,
dinner,
whatever, so even it's dinner meal, right? So I think dinner, yeah.
Yeah, I think same.
Yeah.
For the reason that you said, sitting down with someone.
Perfect.
Who was your first celebrity crush?
Ooh. So it's either going to be who came first.
Oh, you had loads.
Nah. It's like, it's either going to be Hermione Granger.
I don't even know who that is.
Harry Potter.
Okay.
Or it will be Hayley Williams from Paramore. But I can't remember who came first. I reckon it's probably Hayley Williams. Probably. Yeah.
Cool.
Big up 11-year-old me.
Geeky. I can see the geek in you now. Do you believe in love at first sight?
No.
Wow. I should have taken that question out. I could have answered that myself for you. Favorite junk food?
Shit, man.
You know what? I want to hear sweet thing.
Okay.
And savory.
All right. Sweet thing is biscuits.
Okay.
Without a fucking shadow of a doubt. Biscuits. Savory thing. You know what? That's tough. Does bread count as junk food?
No.
Alright, they're not bread.
Eat biscuits with bread.
So, I think it's probably like a toss-up, right? It's either really good fried chicken, because I mean, there's just not much better, or like a real serious curry with like the naan breads and the rices.
What's the spice level? What's your spice level?
Oh, I mean, hit me with whatever you've got. I don't really mind.
Okay, mine is pathetic. Lemon and herb. Don't look at me like that. The judgment.
Utter judgment right now. Utter. I tried so hard, but it hit me right in the square in the chest. Man said lemon and herb, you know. Fucking hell. Yeah, no, I can't. Nah. I don't like.
Are you a medium person?
So I eat medium because to me it's the tastiest.
Okay.
But if you gave me extra hot, I'd be fine. Okay, it wouldn't be a problem. But the problem with extra hot is it's like. So a little known fact about Nando's, hot and extra hot is actually the same, but with extra hot they just put more hot on. Like it's hot but like double the coating.
Okay.
And it's just like the tastiness of hot is that you get the chili flavours, but you also get the garlics and the herbs and this and that.
Yeah.
Extra hot, it's just chili. It's like, okay, cool, like chili tastes nice, but I also like garlic, and I also like herbs, and I also like paprikas and these flavors. Like, I don't need just chili, right?
Yeah.
So it just feels a bit boring. But there is the peri vusa sauce at Nando's, which is like supposedly the hottest one. One, it's not that hot, and two, it's super tasty. So that I'd recommend that one.
Okay.
But yeah, either like fried chicken or like a curry, a good curry. That'd be beautiful.
Well, I literally feel like I've got to know you a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like if I was to ever have you back on here, I'll have to write questions down, because then I'll be like, yeah, we spoke about that.
Yeah.
I know that. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story with me and anyone else listening.
Absolutely, thank you. I mean, it's strange actually. It's very strange. Like, it's strange being on this side of the podcast. That's for sure. I mean, I try to make the podcast that I do as much of a conversation as anything else.
Yeah.
But I do understand. Like, I don't often get. I mean, I don't tell my story ever really to anyone.
Feel privileged.
And yeah, like it came a time when, like, when I was a kid. I don't want to dive too much into this because I know we've been talking for a while. But like, when I was a kid, I didn't tell anyone anything ever. Right? I kept everything super close to my chest. And then the more that I got older, the more I realized that it's just a story, right? Like, when you decompartmentalize that stuff and realize that that's just your life and it is what it is, and nothing to be ashamed of, you just tell it more. And now I'm way more open about telling my story.
That's good.
But this is the first time I think on air I've told my story. So
get in.
Exclusive.
Exclusive.
But yeah, thank you very, very much. I know that this has been a long time coming.
Yeah.
My schedule has not
I was chasing you down.
Yeah, my schedule's not allowed me to do this, but I'm very glad that we have done it, and
I was patient. I knew it will happen. Honestly, I was just like,
of course,
whenever it happens, it'll happen.
And let's run this back the other way. You've got to come.
Of course, have me on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have those biscuit and bread.
All right, I'm ready. I'm so ready. But yeah, thank you very, very much.
No, thank you. Thanks, guys, for listening. It's TGO Podcast. That's good. Or bye.